Welcome back to another episode of Beer Bacon and Bros. Tonight we're going to dive into some NIL stuff, but before we get into that, smash that subscribe button for us. It's totally free to you, means a lot to us, and we're trying to just grow our family here on YouTube. So, NIL. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how it's kind of changed college football, and is it really, is it bad for college athletics where it's at, right? Obviously some big stuff came down yesterday. They've kind of changed the rules on how boosters and these collectives can be offering deals to kids, kind of basically making it where you have to commit to a school before you can even talk with these guys about opportunities and deals and stuff, which I think is going to be great for the overall game in general. But I mean, is it just getting to the point where there's just like too much crazy money in this, right? Like,
yes.
Mr. Ruiz here in Miami, who's been the forefront kind of guy that these rules.
Oh, this is the basketball player, right?
Well, this is the guy that has all the deals at Miami. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the basketball player, but I mean, this guy's pumping $800,000 into sponsorships for athletes at Miami University. Like, that's in a year, he's pumped in $800,000. That's pretty crazy.
So, it has now come to the point of, not that it hadn't already been done before, let me preference that, but you are now paying for players. At the college level, you are paying for players, or paying
legally.
For, yeah.
The dangerous part about being legal, though, now is I think the amounts we're seeing are leaps and bounds above what they were doing under the table, because under the table transactions are so much harder to hide, especially when it's a large one.
Yeah.
But now that it's legal, Buddy's able to drop $800,000 and no one be like, hey, where'd all that money go? Because now he can just legally say, oh, it went to all these college athletes.
Or I put it into a scholarship program. I put it into whatever program I wanted to get these three guys in. These 3 5-star recruits, 1 for basketball, 1 and 2 for football. You know, what'd you do? I bought them all a Range Rover and said, hey, come play at Miami. You know, and you are gonna, I think, see schools that have big donor programs, but have, or not just big donor programs, but big money in the donor programs.
Texas?
Yeah. Theoretically, you should see Texas make leaps and bounds here. You should see USC all of a sudden make leaps and bounds. And you got money in Florida. Yeah, you got lots of money in Florida. So yeah, I wouldn't say Miami, the Gators, some of these schools that have been on the cusp of they should have been good or could have been good. Now all of a sudden I got a couple guys that can just dump tens of millions of dollars into these scholarship funds, or millions of dollars into these scholarship funds, and you are just now buying the best players. No. You're now creating super teams at the college level, or trying to.
But I think I do think this is helping level the court on being able to pay players across the board, because some schools just may have been able to pay players a lot, but just not been able to hide it as well as other schools and stuff like that. Like the thing with Alabama, the supposed the credit cards that are tied to a bunch of offshore banking accounts that are through a bunch of different LLCs and shell companies, where these kids are spending all this money, but it's just so hard to track. But now these other schools are just able to come out and outright pay them. So I do think it is a leveling the field in that aspect, that everyone is now getting paid. So I feel like it's going to level the competitiveness of that. But I do think there needs to be a cap on it as well. It was all or nothing wasn't the way we should have answered it. And we've all talked about how the NCAA commissioner, thank you for finally retiring, but he put this off for, we've been talking, this has been an issue for 12 years. Yeah. And he finally in his last year, he just says, all right, it's all. It's not, it was no longer nothing, it was all. And I think that was not the correct answer, but why should he give a shit? He's on his way out.
Yeah. There definitely needs to be a cap. They need to cap this at some point. Because, at some point, certain teams are going to have a bigger advantage because they just have better donors. Like Texas. Texas can go out and buy any offensive line they could possibly ever dream of.
If they wanted to.
And they can, and they don't have to put it in a McDonald's bag. They can just go and hand it to them and say, hey, here you go, come play for us. Well, not anymore. They have to commit first. But they're still going to make these deals under the table without the consent. But if they get caught, then the penalties are substantially higher
because you have the legal way to pay them.
Correct. But there still needs to be a cap at some point, because there's no reason why
an 18-year-old coming out of high school should have a deal. I understand you may be
An almost 7-figure bank account.
yes.
But there's no reason why, like, especially the kid out of Miami, the basketball player who's like, oh, I'm going to transfer because I'm not making enough money. Like, you're making, I mean, they're giving you, God knows how much money to come play basketball here. And
At that point, though, and I hate to say it too, I think it's the generation of kids growing up now in this entitled era of, oh, you want me to come and play for you? Oh, you want me to do this?
Yeah,
I need this from you, whether it's monetary or something or whatever.
Yeah.
Just whereas I guess not saying we all know it happened and all
Oh, it definitely
it-
happened, but it definitely wasn't
happened.
to this degree or this
Exactly.
level.
It was, hey, not only am I going to give you a scholarship, you can come get I understand you're not here for an education. I understand you're here for sport.
I'll give you a free degree.
But I'm giving you a free degree. We'll cover you in whatever
We'll do some
financial abilities we can without it being suspicious. We got you covered. Don't worry about it.
Or North Carolina's fake classes.
That's what I'm saying. Put some fake classes like they did in North Carolina.
I mean, I was thinking about Rick Pitino's brothel that he was running. And
Oh, yeah, in the hotels?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, you hear some coaches, especially like Dabo Sweeney, the closest one that we've got, complain about these, like, well, this isn't. He was so against players, like he even threatened retirement, which I wish he would just follow through with it, made his word.
Yep.
But he was talking about players shouldn't be getting paid at all. He wanted it to be nothing, and now he's complaining. He made this stupid comparison of like some of these schools are so much larger than these other schools, they can't afford to pay players, and he pulled out some like random states like Middle Tech school or something like that.
Akron, Middle Tennessee State.
Something like that, but his argument in that is so dumb that it's not like those guys could have paid them more under the table.
Yeah.
They still didn't have the money market to pay them at all.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's the issue.
Their budget is like $10 million. Your budget at Clemson's $180 million.
I don't think
you clearly have the money to go out and do.
I don't think the issue here is that like comparing markings like the MLB, like the Oakland A's are just such a small market that they can't afford to pay
They
players.
can't be the Yankees.
Yeah, they can't be Yankees. I mean, I think the NIL is leveling it among all of the Yankee teams in college football, which, I mean, hate to say it, people aren't agree. There's a lot more of that in college football. Like a lot of these schools that you wouldn't even think about having all this money have a shit ton of money to go around.
Houston is a great example. They're getting ready to move into the Big 12, but I mean they're in the top 30 markets.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
For being in Houston,
3 Power 5.
Yeah. And so I mean they're not a Power 5 school. They're getting ready to be a Power 5 school technically by moving into the Big 12, but I mean, ultimately, this is a team that's a top 30 market as far as the money value goes.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to afford players possibly better than like Alabama or Auburn.
Or like you look at like schools like Syracuse and like Rutgers, they're like in the outskirts of like New York and New Jersey and all that.
They got money.
There's a shit ton of money up there. You wouldn't expect that school to be a money house, but it's there. Like
Right.
that argument, I think, is so invalid. But players need to get paid. I just think we messed up by just shooting the door wide
saying
open.
no
No,
cap.
that's not even a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's two difficult things with it. One, we're talking about how the change is now coming where these guys can't be talking to boosters or outside collectives, especially through the recruiting process. They cannot actually like make an agreement with anyone or talk money values
Until
until
they're
they're committed to the school.
I think it's signed with the school.
I think it's signed.
It's
actually.
signed. There actually
Yeah,
has
I
to be
should
a
say
contract.
I think it should
Yeah.
be
They have to
signed.
sign their
The letter of
Yeah,
intent.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a great thing. The difficult thing that's been worked around that when we were talking about Texas a second ago is that one of the boosters at Texas has just said, you know what, every offensive lineman that comes to Texas gets $50,000, right? Which I think is really cool because it gives all of these walk-ons, it gives all guys a guaranteed $50,000. But you also know, hey, if I go to Texas, I'm guaranteed.
I'm guaranteed to
I'm guaranteed to get $50K, right? Doesn't mean if I'm a better offensive lineman, I can't get another NIL and get more money.
But
and here's the
And the guy found a loophole because he wasn't discussing with the players. He just made it known to the public.
Yeah, I just announced it.
Yeah.
There's one more thing when it comes to this cap, and I know you got something to say, so I'm gonna let you go a second. But when it comes to this cap, the whole reason the NIL is even a thing is fair market value. These guys want to be able to get paid for who they are. You can't cap something in a fair market value, right? And so that's kind of the other thing that they're having to work around, right? Like Quentin Ewers got a freaking $2 or $3 million contract from Ohio State
But he had to play so many.
But he had to play so many games by his sophomore year, and so that's where something I'd like to see with some of these deals, right?
Makes some sort of stipulation.
I mean, there's some type of stipulations around it. Like you have to be at the school all 4 years. You have to start X amount of games. You have to be all SEC or something like that. Something where it's almost like a little bit of an earnings thing than just being paid by your name.
Hell, Nick Saban said his quarterback's NIL was approaching, I think, 7 figures.
Yeah, it is.
Bryce Young already had $1 million.
No, I'm saying like, it was approaching 7 figures before the season even started last year.
Yeah, it was.
So it needs to be kind of almost incentive based in the fact of, hey, you need to go out and perform.
Yeah.
You need to I don't know, try to be healthy.
You can't be bitched by week 2.
Yeah, go out, remain healthy throughout this season. I understand freak accidents happen in games, stuff happens, we get it. But don't go out and be stupid on the weekends or when we don't have games during the, don't go out and get yourself hurt. So yeah, I need you to start, of the 16 games, say you play, 100 snaps a game. I know that's on the high side, but you got to start 75% of it. And, you got to be out there for 75 snaps.
Yeah.
So I need you out, so yeah, you got to be out there to make your money.
If I'm paid to be here, you're
going to play. If you're going to get paid to play, you're gonna play your ass off for me.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I again, they don't want to get into a pay for play, which I think Mr. Ruiz here in Miami has actually done a great job. I'm gonna give him credit on this. He called it a pretty quid pro quo, but the guys and girls, he's actually sponsoring 2 volleyball players too, but the people that he's sponsoring are all doing social media posts. They're in commercials. They're at his cigar boat or whatever, stuff off the court that is earning them the money that he's giving them in the NIL deal.
They're actually someone working for it.
Yeah, he's not actually just giving you money and saying, "Hey, thanks for coming to Miami." And so
again, though, that was set up in the deal of saying, "Hey, at this point you are now working."
Yeah, you're in a paid endorsement.
Yeah,
that's how all of these NIL deals should be structured. I think.
Yeah,
there should be some quotas long term.
Because that's the one thing that I think, even MLB and some other professional sports in general, but a lot of your professional athletes need to get out and do more.
We did a video on that a while back about how the MLB doesn't do that anymore. You don't see guys.
That's why the MLB is going down.
You don't see guys doing these outside endorsements. Like you don't see them on commercials. You don't see them on cereal boxes. You don't see them on anything.
Like Shohei Ohtani has been the most promoted and talked about player in the MLB. Granted, he's probably the best player in the MLB right now, especially with the two-way he's playing. But that's not even an American kid. Like, there should be somebody here with some kind of American kid story that we can talk about growing up and making it to the MLB.
Yeah.
Like Mike Trout.
Like Mike Trout or Bryce Harper or whoever. Yeah. Right?
But, there's definitely...
Freddie's Canadian.
Yeah.
Austin Riley.
But there needs to be...
Not return on investment by these guys.
Yeah. Not just your big name guys, only because like you're gonna have your Acuñas who show up on random commercials. You got your Mike Trouts who are gonna show up on random, but get your.
It needs to be nationally broadcast. It doesn't need to be local because around here we can watch Valley Sports and you'll get Braves commercials, so you'll see the players that you know.
Well, we need to focus.
But you need to it's the same concept. You need to have somebody.
Well, it's the same concept as like
for
South Carolina,
naturally done.
Spencer Rattler signed an NIL deal with Herndon Chevrolet. Got a truck out of it, but I haven't seen a Herndon commercial with
Rattler yet. Yeah, totally true.
Needs to be.
I haven't seen them on a billboard. And I'm not saying that they
did
it wrong, but like that from the topic we're on with the return on investment towards the investor, you would expect Herndon Chevrolet to be like, hey,
I need some commercials. Yeah. Well, that's just.
I'm not saying they don't exist, but I haven't seen one.
Well, it's just like Ukulele down in Clemson. He signed an NIL with Bojangles and we did one commercial. Yeah, I never saw it.
Yeah, I saw a social media post.
Somebody did one with Dr. Pepper too, didn't they?
It might have been Ukulele.
Yeah, it was Ukulele too.
Yeah. But he only did one commercial, but they dropped him because he's not going to win the Heisman.
Yeah, probably also true.
But that's like you said. But that's how it needs to be. So you need to almost not.
You need to work for it.
You need to work for it, not just on the field, but you need to. If you're wanting to get paid for your name, then get your name out there by doing. Random stuff.
It's interesting now. I had the thought with the NIL now, and we're almost getting to the point that the NCAA is no longer an amateur organization when it comes to college football or the big main sports, because they're getting paid, they're playing, they're getting sponsorships and all that. But it's almost kind of interesting now, especially with the Miami kid, crying foul because he thinks he's one of the best basketball players in the nation, but he's not.
Well, he's actually going to the NBA, so Ruiz actually denied.
He didn't get his money, so he's like, I'm done.
Upping his,
Okay,
which I think is great, by the way.
Yes.
Let me say that.
Screw you kind of mentality. You're not gonna play.
He said when I made an agreement with somebody, I'm gonna stick to my end. I'm expecting them to stick to their end.
So that's my thing that I'm about to bring up is you almost kind of asked, should there be limitations now on if you sign an NIL deal over X amount and you finish the year healthy, you didn't lose your starting job, there was no coaching fire or no sanctions, should you be allowed to transfer? If there was not a major...
If you sign a contract for 2 years...
But if you sign an NIL deal with all these local sponsorships, like let's say Spencer Alex signs all those like Hernan Chevrolet, all these different people around Lexington, Columbia, Casey, all that area, and he performs great this year, nothing goes wrong, nothing happens, but then all of a sudden he just says, I'm out. Should he be allowed to do that even though he signed all these sponsorship deals?
Yeah, and I think that here I'm going to say this. I don't think his money should be up front. I think his money should be at either the end of the deal or he can get paid, quoted, to what he did, right?
Yeah, per week check, just like they do with the NFL. You play, I'm going to give you your portion of the dividend.
Yeah, so I mean, if you sign a 2-year deal worth $800,000 and you ultimately only play 1 year for South Carolina and then you go to the NFL, I think we should get $400,000 for it, right?
Yep.
You did your half.
Right.
So
that's what I'm saying. But if you sign like a 3-year contract and you opt out of it after a year, you should be paid the full 3 years.
Agreed. Yeah. No.
So
No.
Like so, and I guess that would go along the lines of if you transfer, you go to or you go pro, you lose out on whatever money you didn't make because you didn't adhere to your part of the contract.
Yeah. That's again, we're playing the fine line of it doesn't need to be paid for play, but I mean ultimately there needs to be some stipulations of what we're getting out.
But that's what essentially that's essentially what this is you're being paid to play.
There's a sweet spot where between regulations and just the complete, just wide open Wild West, and we've got to find that spot. And
well, it never should have been just open the floodgates.
We never should have just said, we should have never just said square one is the Wild West.
Yeah. Right.
And then we'll reel it back in.
We'll go back a little bit, but no, it never should have been that way. You should have had some sort of regulation, stipulation, limitation, whatever you want to call it. There should have been something in place before you opened this up to let this happen. So
Wow.
Final thoughts?
I don't think it's hurting college athletics yet. We'll see how it plays out over the coming years. I don't think it's hurting it yet. I think it could eventually.
It's gonna drive ticket prices up.
Agree with that, but
it's not hurting your athletic department. It's hurting your boosters.
But
your athletic department's not up is not fronting the bill.
They can't.
Yeah.
But what needs to be, I think, set up or established is like what we've said this whole day, some sort of stipulations or regulations around how this money is distributed to said players.
Yeah.
So that's my final thoughts on it. Do I see it becoming a problem? Yes. Do I think it's going to be a problem right now? No. But there needs to be some steps taken to ensure
they need to regulate it before it gets too far out of hand.
Correct. So.
Yeah. I'll agree with all of you on what many things have been said. It shouldn't have been handled the way it was by Mark Emmert. We, are just now waiting to put regulations behind it, which is a little bit dangerous, but I think we really got to get the stuff reeled in. You can't limit it because it's a fair market value, but also I think the changes that they've made with the ability for boosters and, the Garnet Trust style things to communicate with prospects and recruits, it slammed the door on it is great. My biggest fear is that it ultimately, we get into there just has to be a minor league for things like football, and so that's kind of my fear is
like a G League kind of thing,
kind of like a G League kind of thing, and I don't want to see college football turn into that because I love college football for what it is, and I want the best players to stay at the college game because part of it makes what college football is.
Oh yeah.
And so, I mean, I think we have to do this right. Like, these kids need to be able to make money on their name, image, and likeness, but I think the deals need to be smarter, and there needs to be some kind of stipulations for what they're expected to do
So
within those deals to give.
If you're not going to cap it, you definitely need to have some sort of regulation or a stipulation in place
Yeah.
that says you can get this without it being paid for play, like you've already stated.
Yeah.
You need to have something in there that says you need to fulfill X, Y, and Z before we.
I need you to shoot 3 commercials a year for me if you
Right.
want to
Yeah.
get your money. You know.
I need you.
Photo
I
shoots
need you to stay. I need you to stay at least your 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do an autograph signing like business that just brings foot traffic. Kind of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Which South Carolina's already been doing that though, because there's been plenty of autograph signings by many
Yeah.
players. I mean, they're going out and doing them.
And we all know that the big reason we want the NIL to succeed is we want the video games to come back. We can have
Oh, absolutely.
But,
It's supposed to come back this year. Supposed
this
to.
summer, well, not this summer, but 2023 summer, yeah.
So let us know in the comments what you think. If you have an NIL experience, if you're one of those people, let us know what you're doing and how you've been handling it, and or if you know somebody, you can tell us a second-hand story. Let us know. But like, comment, subscribe, really grow the family, help us support. User engagement's big. Let us know what you want to talk about, or if we missed a discussion on this NIL. And if you think, give us your ideas on what the NCAA should do. But that's the video. Anybody got any last final say? Goodbyes.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.